Board of Adjustment for Tuesday, April 28, 2015. May we have a roll call?
It's Mr. Don.
Here.
Mr. Descala.
Here.
Mr. Polipiano.
Here.
Mr. Reeds.
Here.
Mr. Semper.
Here.
And Mr. Breen.
Here.
Now, did we hear any word from Mr. Shapiro?
He said that he was coming.
So Mr. Shapiro, pursuant to Section 5, Chapter 231, PL 1975, this is to state for the record that adequate notice of this meeting has been provided to the public by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, the Village's website, South Orange Maplewood News Record, and the Star Ledger, and by filing said notice in the office of the village clerk. Let the record reflect that Mr. Shapiro has arrived. The application to be heard this evening is case 1018, Patricia Killian and Anthony DeLuca at 220 Kingsland Terrace. Applicant is seeking a C variance to build an addition to the back of the house. Okay, as obviously we can see, we're here in the loft this evening, and we have a dance troupe next door. We've done this before. We're just going to have to put up with the giggling and the music, perhaps, and we'll make do. We'll get by. Okay. So, would the applicant like to come forward, or the representative, please?
Variance.
I'm not sure which of these is on.
Yeah,
Or can
Roger.
you hear me? Do you need?
We can hear you.
You can take them out too if you want. Pull it out.
Go ahead, speak into it.
They're both on.
They're both
Oh,
on.
okay. All right. All right. That's fine, as long as you can hear me. Good evening. My name is Patricia Killian. I introduced... Oh, yes.
Ms. Gillian, you're going to talk about factual information, correct? As well as being the applicant. Could you be sworn in, please?
Yes.
Could you raise your right hand? Do
Yes.
you swear or affirm the testimony you give to this board is the whole truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So my name is Patricia Killian, and I'm here with my husband, Anthony DeLuca, and our daughters, Elizabeth DeLuca and Olivia DeLuca. And before I go any further, I'd just like to thank you all very much for accommodating our request for a special meeting. It's a beautiful evening. We really very much appreciate all of you coming out. We're very eager to move forward or in any direction with respect to our application for the variance. So we very much appreciate your willingness to accommodate our request. I'd like to just briefly explain factually our intentions with respect to the application for the variance, and then I'd like to turn it over to our experts, Marvin Clausen, our architect, and Rich Keller, our civil engineer. So my husband and I moved into Maplewood 19 years ago, and we've lived in the same house for the past 19 years, and we love the community, have been very happy here. Our two daughters attend middle school here, have gone to all the public schools here, will continue to do so. Last summer, we decided that we took stock of our lives and decided that we wanted to change our direction a bit and purchase a new home, one that's better suited to our family's needs now and in the future. So after looking at a number of houses, we came upon the home at 220 Kingsland. And it's really a lovely home, and it's just what we were looking for. It's on a quiet street. It's a perfect neighborhood for us because it's very close to the downtown. It's a very friendly neighborhood. We've met most of our neighbors in the process of just introducing ourselves and letting them know about our intention to do some work. They seem like very lovely people. They were very welcoming, very warm. Nobody indicated in any way any concern about our intention to fix up the house. They liked the idea pretty much across the board. Nobody indicated otherwise to us. And the house is great. It's a lovely home. It's the builder and the designer did a wonderful job. They packed a lot into a small lot and into a small house. The layout of the house is very nice. The rooms are a good size for the most part. It's got a fourth second floor bedroom. It's got 2 bathrooms, which is what we were looking for. But there are a couple of issues with the house that we were hoping we could easily remedy by using Marvin Clausen's creative designs. And specifically, the kitchen is tight. It's too tight for modern day appliances. Certainly couldn't accommodate anybody, sitting down at a table and eating. So we'd like to expand it by 4 feet. That would enable us to be able to take the refrigerator that currently is situated just across from the back door and not really inside the kitchen, would move the refrigerator into the kitchen. And then we'd like to expand the 2 second-floor bathrooms so that they can accommodate the size of a normal bathtub. These changes would make the house really comfortable for us, and we think really comfortable to all the future homeowners that come after us. So we're here to ask for you to consider our application for a variance to the setback requirements in the backyard. So without further ado, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Clausen or Mr. Keller, unless anybody on the board has any special questions for me.
Do we have any questions for Ms. Killian at this point?
Thank you very much.
Patrick.
Please raise your right hand. Mr. Keller, do you swear affirm the testimony you give to this board is the whole truth?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so you're not going to have an attorney vetting you, so why don't you've testified before this board, but just briefly for the public, go over your bona fides.
Yes, I'm appearing tonight as a licensed engineer and planner. I was licensed as an engineer in 1989 and as a planner in 1990. I hold a Bachelor of Science in Civil Engineering from Rutgers University with a concentration in water resources and environmental engineering. I also hold a master's degree with a concentration in urban planning and design, and that is from the New Jersey Institute of Technology, where I was also an adjunct professor for approximately 11 years. I have appeared before this board, as well as your planning board, all 23 communities in Essex County. Last year, I was the planning consultant to the Borough of Caldwell. I've appeared approximately before 100 boards, and my license is in good standing when last checked.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
No.
We recognize you as an expert.
Thank you. Briefly, I'm wearing 2 hats, slightly engineer, but I'm going to just basically describe the site characteristics and then let Mr. Clausen tell you about how he resolved the program that the applicant asked him to do, and then I'll come back and briefly wrap up with my planning testimony. I believe everyone got supplemental documents, including a copy of the tax map on an 11 by 17 format. Just to make sure everybody's aware of the property, it's on the northwest side of Kingsland Terrace. It's a approximately 100-foot deep by 60-foot wide property located between Kingsland and South Ridgewood Road. The house that sits on the property sits up rather attractively on the property, filling the primary front of the property with a driveway on the right side that goes back to a garage. We provided the tax map to show that of all the properties, first of all, we are an undersized lot in terms of lot width, but most of the properties in this neighborhood are less than the 110-foot required. But part of the reason for this exhibit was to show that we are actually one of the shallowest lots in the neighborhood. We have just over 100 feet of depth. The next shallowest lot on the entire block is up at Rinda Road, and that's 122 feet deep. Most of the lots being anywhere from 140 to 156, and then upwards of 165 feet deep. So in terms of the block, both on our block and the lots across the street, we are among the shallower, certainly on our block, and among the shallowest in the neighborhood. So I wanted to bring that to the board because I think it's important to recognize that part of the variance relief we only need variance relief for one item, and that is the proximity of the addition to the existing garage on the property. We are fully compliant with all the other aspects. If that garage didn't exist, or the garage was 10 feet further back, we would not need to be before this board. We would pull the building permit, and the Killians and the DeLucas would be building away. So I wanted to have the board understand from this exhibit that it is a shallow lot. Just to briefly go through the existing structure, I believe you also have...
What is the lot depth? I'm sorry, I missed
The lot depth is 100.43 feet.
It is the shallowest.
The other exhibit which you were provided is photo board number 1. It is 6 photographs showing 1 through 6. Photograph number 1 is looking northwest towards the house from the street, showing the way it sort of nestles in with the other homes within the neighborhood. We went up the street and then looked back to the west. You can see from the other side, the Killians have already started doing some interior renovating. There's a dumpster in the driveway. These two photographs are intended to show that from either of these two perspectives, you will not be able to see the addition that's in the back of the house. There will be no presence of the addition on the street or from any of the surrounding streets of the addition. Photograph number 3 shows the existing rear of the house. Actually, the front of the house is kind of attractive with a low slung porch with a second floor mast that pokes up through the roof line, the constant sloping roof line. The back, as was typical with homes in this era, is a little more less composed. It's a rather flat planar back. Some of the windows line up, but there's not really a whole lot of symmetry. There's no horizontal delineation between the mass of the one-story versus the two-story. It's a rather flat planar backyard. Photograph number 4 is taken from the back corner of the house. So we're standing at the corner of the house, shown on the right side of photograph number 3, and looking back towards the garage. And you can see the garage nestles into landscaping at the back of the property, about 2.9 feet off the right side and just over 3 feet off the rear line. Photograph number 5, we're taking a look at the house next door to us, and you can see that in this photograph, you see that the addition is going to line up with the second story part, so it comes down just to this side of the door, and it stops just prior to the bulkhead into the basement. Total comes out 4 feet from the house, and it is 16 feet wide for a total of 64 square feet. And then photograph number 6, we're looking back to see, again, the homes next to us. The next door home is about a foot deeper than us. We're going to go beyond that about 3 feet, but that mass is centered. And the next home on the block up towards the intersection of North Ridgewood, you can see actually projects probably another 15 feet into the backyard. So we're certainly not unique in how deep we project into the backyard, given the surrounding neighbors. That's the basic lay of the land, the home. What I'd like to do is have Mr. Clausen explain now how he's designed the addition to nestle into that back portion, fully compliant with all the side yard setbacks, the coverage, the height, et cetera, how we resolve the program. Then I'll come back briefly for the planning proofs.
Thank you.
Unless you have any questions now.
At this point?
Can we ask a question about coverage? Or is
Yep.
it too early? Can you explain how you calculated the coverage on here? And I can't tell whether or not there's additional patio in the back, or is it the same footprint as the patio that's existing?
The patio is not enlarged. Essentially, the house is going over the existing patio, so there's no increase in impervious area. Your ordinance, we are, when I come to the variances as part of my planning proofs, there are a couple of, I'll do them now. There are four existing non-conforming conditions on the property. One is lot width. You require 110 foot of lot width. We're only 60 feet. The minimum front yard, 25 is required. We're just a smidgen under that 24'6". That's an existing non-conforming condition again. Lot coverage, 40% is permitted. We're at 49%. There's no change because the addition is going over existing patio and the patio will not be expanded. So under your zoning ordinance and the practice of your zoning officer, as long as you're not increasing that impervious area, you don't need to notice for a variance. You don't need variance relief. And again, as I said, if it wasn't for one other variance, we wouldn't need to be before this board.
I see that the driveway is being paved. Right now it's 2 concrete strips, tire.
Nope.
Oh, different one. I'm sorry.
Wrong application.
Darn it. See, you were right. I got confused by
You got me scared for a second.
Right.
Because you're right, because the other
Right,
application has
okay.
a similar driveway.
But did you calculate the coverage?
The architect calculated the coverage, looked in line to me.
Okay.
It counts all impervious coverage.
Okay.
So the garage, the sidewalks, the walks, the patios, the driveway, et cetera, included in that, and we're holding no increase at 49%. The other existing nonconformity, as I indicated earlier, the accessory structure the requirement is 3 feet off the line. We're only 2.09 feet off of the right side. So if you look at the garage towards the house immediately to the northwest, 3 feet's required. It exists at 2.09. We're not changing anything there, so it's an existing non-conforming condition. And the only variance we need relief from is Section 92-200A1D, which is accessory setback from an existing structure. 20 feet is required. The existing distance from the house to the garage is currently 15.75 feet. And with the addition, with the 4-foot, which is centered, it's not directly aligned with it, 4-foot centered, that will go down to 11.83 feet. So variance is required for the addition in the center being too close to the accessory structure. And that's the only variance that brings us before you tonight.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you. I'll note that there's no members of the public here to ask any questions, Mr. Keller. Need to swear in this expert too, Mr. Clausen.
Good evening. My name is Marvin Clausen.
Hold that right up there.
You swear or affirm the testimony that you will give to this board is the whole truth.
I do.
Please state your name and address.
Marvin E. Clausen, 145 Donnell Road, Clausen Architects, Maplewood, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Clausen, why don't you briefly go over your resume so we can certify you as an expert.
Okay. I'm a licensed architect in the state of New York, New Jersey, Vermont, and Florida. I received my license in New Jersey in 2001. I'm also a member of the National Council.
Got to hold that up really close. We're getting there.
Thank you. I'm also a member of the National Council of Architectural Registration Board, which certifies architects within the 50 states of the United States. That allows me to get a certification over state lines. I teach at FIT in the Interior Design Department. I'm also a licensed interior designer in the state of New Jersey.
Have you ever testified before the Board of Adjustment?
I have testified before this board, and I have testified before the boards, the Planning Board and the Zoning Board in Maplewood, also in Millburn, and several other cities or municipalities in the state.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Mr. Clausen?
No.
I don't have a question. I would just request that you speak as loudly as you can.
Okay.
It's so loud over there.
All right, I'll
I'm having
try.
trouble
I
hearing you.
can't quite gauge the tone. Okay, thank you. I'll yell. Okay.
Okay, so we recognize you as an expert in architecture.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to begin where Ms. Killian left off regarding the expansion of the kitchen. When we started looking at the project, one of the things that we noticed that, as she mentioned earlier, it was a very romantic style house which lent itself to small extensions of the building in different areas. One of the things that we considered is putting the 4-foot bump here on the back of the house because we had a physical barrier of this. This is the bearing wall inside the house. It comes here in dog legs and goes down. And also it's the area of the stairs. So it was physically impossible for us to even move it because of the structure and also of the providing circulation in the core of the house. So we looked at the alternative of bumping it out 4 feet. The other hard stop was the Bilco door. We didn't want to touch that as well. And so we just stopped at that, and we're going to adjust the dining room wall back so it matches this line here at the Bilco door. We did take out the bathroom. We made it a powder room, which expanded the vestibule so that you could come in easier into the house. We turned the bedroom into a study, so we're not increasing the amount of bedrooms. And the other item that we did is we bumped out over the existing bluestone porch to create a bay window to allow us to install a heirloom piano that's owned by the family. So we didn't expand any of the footprint of the existing building on the front of the house. We only chose to expand it on the rear of the house to the bare minimum of 16 feet, which was from the structural wall to the Bilco door. You can see in the photographs how cramped the kitchen is. It has a stove in this area. The refrigerator was here, the sink looking out to the rear yard, and then a cupboard with access down to the basement. What we did is we actually expanded the stair to relieve that access because we had a headroom issue right here at the landing. So not only by the expansion are we improving the circulation within the kitchen, but with the physical condition of the basement stair, which is currently non-compliant. On the second floor, again, we kept the original stair location, and we're basically just expanding the bathrooms to accommodate double sinks for the 3 bedrooms and a WC and a bathtub shower. On the master bedroom side, we've accommodated a shower, a tub, and a single vanity in the sink. So it's something that's very modest in today's standards. We reconfigured the bedrooms to allow a larger master bedroom here, and basically are just keeping the same bedrooms on the front of the house with a small bedroom that's on the side of the house with the driveway on this side. Lastly, we came up to the attic floor. We kept the stair again in the same location, and we added a small bathroom with a dormer and then a bedroom area. Now this is this still keeps the house at a 2.5-story house because it's under 50% of the second floor by a considerable amount. So it's a very modest bedroom and with a small closet and stair access down to the second floor. On the elevations, we treated the elevations with the front and the 2 sides. We're upgrading it with new windows that are historically correct with the house, and new screen panels for the front porch. We are basically just cleaning the roof, cleaning the materials, and upgrading them. Not upgrading them, but just cleaning them. On the back, we're proposing an addition that matches the same materials as the front. So we're using cedar shake shingles, a small awning roof over the entrance into the vestibule. On this side, we're adding a decorative column at the front entry. Here's the rear entry with the awning roof, the new 3 windows in the kitchen, each window in the bathroom, and a small window in the bathroom above, with a dormer providing light and air into the bedroom on the 3rd floor, and as well as egress for the 3rd floor. So the style that we chose was try to match exactly the materials that are on the original house and create a romantic style on the back as well, the asymmetrical gable. The roof addition here is going to match the existing, which is a multicolored slate. We'll match all it, so once it's done, it dovetails beautifully into it. Now, when we got to the rear of the house, I would like to compare it against photograph number 3 on Mr. Keller's board, showing how we created what we feel is a sympathetic addition by using the same materials, the same massing, and animating the roof with this little dormer to create something that's within the style of the building and is complementary to it rather than against the original concept of the roof. So we really tried to make the house look better with this addition by creating a mass on the rear of the house that modulates the facade just like it does on the front. So our attempt was to not only be a good neighbor to the people that we see in the front, but also to the rear of the property.
Thank you. Is that your testimony?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have questions for Mr. Clausen. Mr. Don?
I actually don't have any questions. The drawings are very clear to me. I understand what's going on.
Okay.
I guess my only one question is, do you know the height of the ceiling on That's called the attic story.
Yes.
In the living portion.
Yes, that'll be 7 feet 6 inches.
Okay. So less than a certain percentage of that floor.
Oh, yes, a considerable amount.
Yeah, I mean, most of that space up on the third floor, I'm assuming ceiling has less than that. It's just
Yes,
that
sir.
center area.
It's a very low roof. In fact, the way they did the structure, they did knee walls in order to carry the load down to the bearing walls on the first floor. So that wall where the stair is bearing in the kitchen and then up on the second floor with the bathrooms, that is the knee wall in the attic carrying up the roof load. The slate roof actually imposes a considerable amount of weight on the structure.
And essentially, the layout of the bedrooms on the second floor is not changing significantly. You're switching access to some closets, I see, and you sort of took the 2 bedrooms and the 3 little closets, and that became the 2 bathrooms and the 3 little closets, and that became the 2 bigger bathrooms.
Yes, sir. That's correct.
I don't really have any questions. I think they got a lot out of 64 square feet on each floor.
Yep.
Other questions? I had a question, Mr. Clausen. Could you repeat yourself? Were you saying that the materials on the side of the addition match those on the current house?
Yes, except for the gable end, we were going to match all of the materials that are on the back of the house. What happens is it's a brick in walls that act like bookcases. And then in the back, they used cedar shake shingles that go across. We were even going to repurpose 2 of the shutters for the 2 windows, so it all looks like it was built at the same time.
And the windows similarly are going to be similar to the windows that currently exist in the house?
No, sir. Actually, we're changing the windows on the current house to make it appear more within the style of the house. We're really trying to give it an upgrade.
Okay. Other questions?
Yeah.
Questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Leave it up. Leave it up. As indicated, the variance relief this evening we seek is for the relationship between this 4-foot addition and the existing garage. Where 20 feet is required, we are proposed at 11.83. We think that this variance can be approved by this board under Municipal Land Use Law 4055 D70, both C1 and C2. The C1 standard being basically the combination of the shallow lot depth when compared to the other neighborhood lots, combined with the location of the lawfully existing structure, that being where the garage is currently located and the size of the garage, creates a practical difficulty in improving this house without needing variance relief. The architect has really, I think, worked very adeptly at getting a lot of program, as Mr. Don said, out of only 64 square feet. It only projects 4 feet off the existing house, and the mass is centered, so it has no impact on the side neighbors. We think that if it were not for the existing garage and the short lot, if this lot were 10 foot deeper and that garage moved back with the property line, we wouldn't be here tonight. If this lot was 122 and a half feet deep, like the rest of the lots on the property, we actually wouldn't need a lot coverage variance either. We would be fully compliant. So there's a function of both the location of the garage as well as the undersized shape of the lot creates a hardship. Under C2 of municipal land use law, we need to demonstrate that the purposes of the municipal land use law are advanced by the deviation and that the benefits of the deviation would substantially outweigh any, the benefits would substantially outweigh any detriments. With regard to the purposes of the Land Use Act that are advanced, first and foremost is general welfare and safety. We have an existing home that, as Mr. Clausen said in the pictures, the only place to fit the existing refrigerator in the current kitchen was not in the kitchen itself, but in the vestibule. So it actually blocked part of the egress getting out into the backyard. You also had an entrance, if I should look on the plan, you have an entrance from the vestibule into the kitchen on one side of the stove, and you have an entrance to a bedroom on the other side of the stove. So you've got 2 access points of traffic right next to a flame source. Clearly, not a safe condition. Mr. Clausen's reorganizing the kitchen into that 4-foot bump out clearly addresses those safety issues. The bedroom becomes a study. The vestibule becomes more appropriately scaled next to the existing powder room. So we think it improves the safety of the house and certainly improves general welfare when you're allowing a home to come up to the current standards that most people in South Orange are looking for today. That dovetails into the purposes of the Act 4055 D2G, which is to provide for a variety of residential uses in order to meet the needs of the community and all New Jersey citizens. We're upgrading the existing house. We're providing for a more quality housing choice within the neighborhood. Is an aesthetic enhancement, not just to the back of the building, which we think is substantial, although I think mostly it'll be perceived by the owners of the property and the occasional deer that wanders through the backyard, because you can't see it. I couldn't get pictures of the back of the house very well because everywhere you went, it was blocked from the surrounding neighborhoods, and you cannot see it from the street. But there is an aesthetic enhancement. We were happy that the client was very careful to say, I want to match, I don't want to take off. Most of my clients would say, I'm not going to pay for a slate roof. Take off the existing slate roof. Let's re-roof it and do something, an asphalt roof. The client was very careful to say that they wanted to match that. They wanted the massing to match. They wanted it to look like it was always there. Replacing some of the replacement windows that were in the house to go back. They're actually replacing all the windows to go back to a style that is more relevant to the era of the home. So we think that there is certainly an aesthetic enhancement for the project on a whole. Conservation of an historic home that dovetails into. This is not an historic district, but it is certainly a historically relevant home, and I think the architect and client, through both the addition and the massing, have really respected that. For both C1 and C2 variances, we need to show the negative criteria is met, and the first prong of the negative criteria is that there's no substantial detriment to the public good. And the second is there's no substantial impairment to the intent and purpose of the zone plan and zoning ordinance. With regard to the public good, the addition cannot be seen from the street. It is centered on the rear mass with only a 4-foot projection into the rear yard. There is no degradation of air, light, and open space to the neighbor. As Mr. Clausen indicated, we think the rear of the building is actually made more attractive by the bump out in the mass. We see only benefits. This contemporizes an existing historic home within the community with no degradation to the neighborhood streetscape. There is a significant aesthetic upgrade all around. The rear addition improves the massing. Again, we see no negatives. We see this project is actually consistent with the intent and purpose of your master plan to preserve South Orange as a residential community of the highest order. I think this is a good application. I think the architect was very restrained on a tight site in getting a lot of bang for the buck with very minimal footprint. We think it's a good application, and we ask that you approve it.
Questions? Mr. Keller, have you had any thoughts over the years of what's the purpose of our ordinance as far as distance with accessory structures to the principal structure? We struggled with that ourselves.
Most communities that have such an ordinance, and about half that I know do, it's generally you don't want to have where the accessory structure is so close to the principal structure that it looks like an addition of the home, because then it looks like the home just rambles into the backyard. I think in this case, the 11-foot difference, the 11-foot 11.83, I'm looking for the right drawing, the 11.83 foot separation is really, these two masses are shifted. So when I look up the driveway, I won't see that bump in the back that's here. I'll still see the same relationship of this garage to this low one-story addition. There'll be no change in perception of that. Will not feel as though that garage is so close to the house that it becomes an extension of the primary home. So that's in the towns where they've articulated the purpose. That's been it, to keep so it doesn't feel like a run-on home.
Thank you.
And I don't think this does.
Is there also a safety benefit to it?
We have garages that are attached to homes, so we have cars in garages, so I think it's less of a safety issue than it is a massing issue. Certainly, you could have a fire in a garage that's attached versus detached, but I think it really comes to proximity in terms of it not overwhelming the site in terms of mass, air, light, and open space.
Questions? And again, there's no members of the public. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other statements you all wish to make? Okay, so now it's time for us to discuss or give our thoughts about the pros and cons of this
Let
application.
me start with one question. There was testimony that because there are no changes to the house that affect the pre-existing non-conforming uses, Sal, that those don't require us to issue a variance. Is that true?
Yes, it's a pre-existing condition. They're not increasing the lot coverage, so it's already there.
I feel like in other cases, we've granted variances for pre-existing non-conforming uses that weren't affected by the change being made to the structure when as part of the application. Just feels to me that's different.
Maybe special permit cases or something.
I think we've done that on cases where it's been a use variance.
Oh, only where it's a use variance.
Right.
Okay.
Any thoughts?
I mean, we've had this application in a variety of different forms over the years. Many times it's been a deck addition or some expansion to a structure attached to the house. I mean, I happen to think that this is a very well thought out plan. I mean, it's always nice to see a plan where what the final result is a real improvement over what's there. And granted, you won't see it from the street, but I think from the enhancement to the house, not just for these owners, but for future owners, I think it's for 4 feet by 16 feet wide, they've really gotten a much better quality house in that they have a nice but not oversized kitchen. It's very much in scale with the rest of the rooms on the first floor. And they have 2 nice but not overly garishly large bathrooms on the second floor to serve the bathrooms there. And they are picking up some space on the attic story, which virtually every house in town has. And as long as they're under the percentage of square footage that they're allowed to have, I don't see a harm in that. The stair is already there to the 3rd floor. So I think by and large the benefits outweigh any detriments, and I don't even really see any detriments. So I would support this application.
So as a technical matter, you're saying that it satisfies the C2 and that it contemporizes the house, brings it up to the modern standards
yes,
that people expect.
I don't necessarily buy the aesthetic enhancement in that you could do nothing to this house and do the same materials that they're proposing. But I think the addition itself enhances the quality of the design of the layout of the house. I mean, the decoration of the house is just a plus, but they could have done the decoration without any sort of change to the house as well.
It's also fairly de minimis addition. I mean, the impact, there would be no impact to the neighbors related to bulk. You can't see it from the street.
But given that the variance we're being asked for is distance to an accessory structure,
right.
I think C1 is more relevant. And the fact that it's a lot that's shallower than the other lots in the neighborhood, and that the garage is already pushed back up against the lot line, says, justifies issuing a variance for distance to an accessory structure directly.
Right.
And so I agree, it's a strong application. I just think it should be at C1.
Okay.
It's interesting because the lot itself is not really undersized.
It's not what?
It's not undersized.
I mean, from a square footage perspective.
From a square footage.
Right.
Yeah, I'm ambivalent about the C1. I see Mr. Parlapiano's point. It is smaller than the other ones, but there's a gray line when it becomes a peculiar and exceptional hardship. So I'm not so sure about the C1. I wouldn't go to the mat to fight it. I'm more convinced, like Mr. Don said, as a C2 variance, that it contemporizes the house. And I also agree that from my interpretation over the years of the point of this ordinance about distance is to avoid the appearance of a rambling mass. We've gone to the fire chief on several occasions, who's never had a problem with us granting a variance in this type of application. So I don't think it's a matter of safety in this case. I think it's a matter of mass, and I agree that it doesn't present itself as a uniform mass. I think there's some also mitigating factors here, and that it's not visible from the front of the house. It has many of the same materials in the addition as the current house. It's centered, so it doesn't have as much visual impact on the neighbors. And what else was I going to say? Oh, well, just like Mr. Don said, for the amount of the addition, it adds a considerable amount of useful space to the house that wasn't there before.
Without throwing anything out of scale.
Yes. I think it's well done. It's nice to see somebody put some money into something. They get experts who know what they're doing, respect the architecture of the house, respect the history of the residential architecture, and make it even better. Any other thoughts?
Just briefly, I agree. I think it's a terrific application. I think it's very well done. I think the change for which they need the variance is de minimis, and I fully support it. I think it improves the neighborhood and obviously improves the house.
All right, so I would move to grant this application without conditions as applied.
I second the motion.
Mr. Don?
Yes.
Mr. Paulapiano?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Semper?
Yes.
Mr. Shapiro?
Yes.
Mr. Breen?
Yes.
And Mr. DeScala?
Yes.
Very good. Congratulations. Have
Yeah,
fun.
congratulations.
Okay, is there any other business that we need to take care of this evening? Our next meeting is next.
Do we need to inform the applicant that we don't have we were going to take these guys in front of them. Now there's not going to be anybody in front of them.
Well, isn't there something else on
Or do
for
we have
Thursday?
Well, there's,
You guys are done. You don't need to stick around.
yeah, y'all are,
You're done.
you're free.
You're dismissed.
Enjoy. We have Fairview.
Right, so, but we didn't tell them,
No, we didn't tell them that they would go first.
Is that the one with the Is that the one with the driveway with the?
yes.
Yes.
Because that's to me, that's a fairly simple one as well. I mean, I just am concerned about having them come and sit here. I guarantee you that the self-placed one is going to take all night. No one else is going after them. So the question is whether you want to move the other one up first and get them done, because I would not have them come for after.
Yeah. Well, the reason I took self-place St. Paul's first last time, I just basically made a judgment call. There were a lot of people there that wanted to speak, and I didn't want to, you couldn't be certain even with this application that it was going to be as simple as it was, and I erred on the side of St. Paul's was first.
Well, it's done. It's not.
Yeah, I don't care about that.
We're facing the same situation for next week. If we want to put in this other application first,
But we did tell the self-place people that we were going to take an application in front of them.
We did tell
So they're going to
them.
arrive late anyway, a lot of them, so it might make sense to...
Jenna's shaking your head.
Because Mr. Don had told me to let Ms. Berkenwald know that they will be first, so I told her that they're going to be first before we have a special meeting.
Oh, I see.
Well, you can always change that message if you wanted.
I think let's get rid of Elaine, man.
What?
Let's get rid of Ms. Buchenwald. Let's just do that first.
Excuse me?
Let's do the
That
self.
one, I think, is another one that we could do in probably an hour.
Well, it's going to take all night. We probably won't get to Fairview.
Self is the
Mr. Renda, do you have an opinion as to how long the Fairview will take?
It's difficult to say. It all depends on the professionals and how they present the application.
Right.
Tonight's application was very concise, relevant, and brief. But
Well, we did tell Fairview they were coming after Self-Place. So that's what they're expecting.
yeah,
And they probably are aware they may not go on at all. Let's just keep it as it is. All right, anything else? So is it next Thursday? Is it this next Thursday?
Thursday.
Next
Thursday.
Thursday. next Thursday, so let's remember that.
Thursday the 7th.
God knows I would
And I'm gonna make sure.
tend to forget
You know what?
that. Okay, so next Thursday, any other
Say gardening, I'm gonna show.
any other questions?
I'm gonna show.
Okay, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Be up for tomorrow.
is normal